Okay, I'll call a meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. This actually is the last council meeting before our civic election on November 15th, and so as Mayor, on behalf of Council, I'd urge everyone to get out and vote, either in the advanced polls that are coming up this weekend next, or on general voting day, which is on November 15th, Saturday. I want to acknowledge and thank all of the candidates that put themselves out there, put themselves on the ballot, put themselves forward for public life, but most importantly, while it only works when good people step forward to put their name on a ballot, it also only works when the electorate gets out and votes and casts an opinion, and we ask you to do that general election day on the 15th or on the advanced polls. Thank you very much. I'll also mention that I've just been advised that item 5, is it? Item 5 has been withdrawn by the applicant. So that will appear on a different agenda in the future. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item this evening is a presentation. I'd like to invite Ms. Janet Tonnington, who's chair of the Coquitlam Foundation, to come forward, and she's here to speak about celebrating National Philanthropy Day.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Stewart, members of council, city staff, members of the public. I am Janet Tonnington, chair of the Coquitlam Foundation, and I'm here with our vice chair, Julie Fisher. Thank you for the opportunity to bring you the Foundation's annual report to council, and also to mark National Philanthropy Day. We're a little bit early this year, as the day is celebrated on November 15th, but it seems that November 15th is auspicious for another reason, we understand, this year.
Not as charitable.
The other directors on the Foundation are Secretary Sam Nakai, Treasurer Bob Tanaka, Mayor Richard Stewart represents the city, Jerry Wallace represents School District 43, and Randy Webster is the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce representative. Other board members are Ken Catton, Ron Grender, Linda Meneghello, Terry O'Neill, and Colleen Talbot. Dale Clark is our executive director, and our administrative assistant is Margaret Owens. Created in 1992, the Foundation's volunteers have worked with generous, far-sighted donors to invest wisely and build a variety of endowment funds, all so that we can support important community projects and deserving students. The Foundation manages two types of funds: those managed directly by the Foundation and those established by donors to support a specific interest or purpose. The Foundation-directed funds support a variety of purposes. Our community fund covers a number of objects to meet our mission of encouraging and supporting creative, targeted philanthropy that builds a vibrant, sustainable, and healthy community. Several Foundation-directed funds target specific interests and areas requiring support. We currently have 22 funds established by donors wishing to target areas of particular interest. These funds include those established by families to provide grant monies for physical and mental wellness, athletics, health research, the arts, and education. A number of donor-advised funds have been established by local agencies to support specific activities and goals. There are a number of these goals and the agencies that have established these funds in this slide. Our specialty funds support interests such as cultural diversity, literacy, post-secondary education, and challenging medical conditions. Now, turning to the Foundation's numbers, currently we have assets totaling over $2.75 million. Despite some very challenging global economic conditions, our funds have grown significantly over the last few years, thanks to a prudent investment strategy. Our rate of return over the last fiscal year was a healthy 10.25%.
Wow.
Starting a fund with a foundation is easy, and it doesn't require a large initial contribution. Donors can create a fund for a general charitable purpose or to support a particular interest. The monies are carefully invested to grow the fund, creating a legacy to benefit people and organizations in our community for future years. By choice of some donors, including Westbuild, funds may be invested for a short time with the full capital amount dispersed throughout the year. The foundation and its professional investment manager charge a nominal amount for managing the funds. The foundation's management fee goes to cover administrative costs and overhead. Now I'll turn the podium over to my colleague Julie to talk to you about our activities, past, present, and future.
All right, so in March, we had Woody's on Burnett hosted us for a beverage and burger pub night, which many of you were able to attend. And that had a silent auction as well, and we raised $3,443 for the foundation. In April, we established a new fund called the Della and Cam Grant Fund. Named Della's alive, but it's named after her and her late husband Cam. The new fund is designed to help armed services veterans, to help children enjoy sports, to support women and children living in poverty, to accommodate homeless, and to help children suffering from life-threatening medical conditions. Also, pet-friendly needs will be supported as applicable to the grant application. She provided an initial grant of $50,000 to start her fund with promises of future contributions. The fund is Della's way of thanking the many residents who supported her organic produce and pumpkin patch business for more than 2 decades in Port Coquitlam. Next, we had our awards night in June at the Evergreen Cultural Centre. For example, our Coquitlam Foundation Community Fund awarded $6,750 in bursaries that night, as well as over $33,000 in community grants to various projects. The donor-advised funds also granted numerous bursary scholarships and community grants, including Westbuild, who distributed over $35,000 in scholarships to support CABI graduates pursuing post-secondary training and education. The total grants to the community from all funds this past fiscal year was over $124,000. So every year we are gaining more and more to give out to the community. There's a photo. If you get a chance to come to this event, it's a free event, and we'd love to see all of you. It's a great opportunity to see what's going on in the community. So fundraising. The foundation can only continue with ongoing support from our various donors, sponsors, and volunteers. This Friday, we have our gala fundraiser, Kickin' It Country. Janet's going to help me out with the theme here. We're featuring Western theme, including delicious chicken ribs, sides from Cactus Club, DJ, classic and modern country music, a live auction, prize raffle, yeehaw, and live entertainers, including guitar player Tony Prophet and our violinist Jesse Casimir. We also have a dance instructor, Candace Zanini from K-Dance Studios. She's going to lead us in an everyone welcome line dancing and group dancing event. So you don't have to know how to dance country, we'll teach you. Tickets still available. If you can't make it, can you tweet about it? Can you comment about it on Facebook? Anything would help us get the word out. The foundation is well on its way to becoming self-sufficient. We need about $1 million more in invested funds to provide for our current overhead and expenses without raising any management fees or further fundraising. So we're close to being completely independent. The foundation still needs help getting the word out so that persons and organizations know they can apply for grants from us each February, and to know that the foundation is the best place to establish new funds and fulfill your philanthropic goals in our community. turning it over to Janet now.
We're always looking for volunteers from our community to serve on committees or to sit on our board, ways to play an important role in the ongoing growth of our foundation and contribute to a vibrant, sustainable, healthy community in Coquitlam. We invite everyone to come out to our annual awards ceremony, our AGM, and support our fundraising events throughout the year. And for more information, we have our website listed here, telephone number. Send us some comments, and we'd like to thank you so much.
I certainly, on behalf of council, want to thank the foundation for the work it does in our community. I know that Councillor O'Neill, of course, participates enthusiastically on the board and on committees.
I'm trying to Facebook this right now.
Okay, geez. We'll take a short pause while, yeah, but certainly both of us enjoy working on the foundation, but all of us join in thanking the work of the foundation and all of its donor groups that make it work and make it possible. And I've got Councillor Sikora.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, going back many years ago, I started this foundation back, and I'll tell you, I thought it was going to be successful, but I never thought it'd be really this successful. So, you know, a lot of thanks to the board of directors that are there today, and keep on building it, because it was one of those ideas that I come up with years ago, and I thought, well, you know, we may be able to build something out of it. It may survive, it may have some problems and a few other things, but certainly it's just grown by leaps and bounds. It's certainly shocking to me how good you people did. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I wouldn't say shocking, I would say impressive. Outstanding, well done. Okay. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item, item 2, is the minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, October 27th. The recommendation is to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is the minutes of the Universal Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 7th. Recommendation to receive those minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is minutes of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee meeting of Thursday, October 23rd. Recommendation to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Sikora. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
As the Mayor mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, item 5 has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. And we'll now move on to item 6. Item 6 is a zoning bylaw text amendment to the A3 Agricultural and Resource Zone. This is bylaw number 4473. Staff recommendation is that Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4473, and that bylaw 4473 be referred to public hearing.
Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 concerns community partnership requests. The staff recommendation is that Council direct staff to attend the November 26th meeting of the Tri-Cities Healthier Communities Partnership and report back on the partnership's work plan priorities and resource requirements, and 2, endorse the terms of reference, including the city's participation on the Tri-Cities Local Immigration Partnership Council.
Okay, moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I wanted to clarify a couple of things. First, the recommendation that staff attend November 26th meeting, report back on the TCHCP's work plan priorities and resource requirements, is a bit challenging because I don't expect the TCHCP to define their work plan priorities at the November 26th meeting. The expectation is that at that meeting they will consider what other community groups to pull in to the mix, to the people supporting all these endeavors, and then with those people in the group to consider priorities. So that's a little bit further out. As far as resource requirements go, the resource requirements have been fairly clearly defined since the beginning as far as the municipalities are concerned, and that's that each municipality would provide a councillor and a staff person as appropriate to support that councillor in 4 or perhaps 5 meetings a year of a couple of hours, that each municipality would take on a secretariat role for 1 year out of 3, and the resource requirements for the work of the committee, of the partnership, would be met through the task groups that will be established to deal with identified plans and projects. So if the Healthy Communities Partnership decides that they wish to tackle issues of mental health in youth, we'll find appropriate partners to assist in dealing with that and look to those people to provide the resources to put forward the recommendations and do the work. So there are no significant resource requirements for the municipalities or the other partners beyond those that I've just identified. Within the report, we're told that Port Moody Council endorsed the terms of reference and have committed to providing meeting support to the committee 1 year out of every 3. In fact, Port Moody, for reasons that weren't made clear to me, have committed to providing support 1 year out of 5. Whether that's because they think they're much smaller than the other 2 municipalities or because they think Anmore and Belcarra deserve to take an equal share, I don't know, but that remains to be clarified. It also says City Port Coquitlam has not committed to further participation. In fact, they've adopted the terms of reference and approved the participation of Councillor Pollock over the next 3 years and agreed to act as Secretariat for the year 2015. And in terms of potential outcomes, I think it's important to think of what the benefits of this program, this partnership, could be. Some are described near the bottom of page 3 as in other communities the HCP is involved supporting creation of pedestrian-friendly environments, smoking cessation initiatives, access to recreation programs and local services. Those are all true and they're all important to community health, but frankly what sold me on this being something that we ought to be involved in and that we should try to make effective in the Tri-Cities was learning that the Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows Healthier Communities Partnership had succeeded in attracting general practitioners to Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows and helped to solve the doctor shortage in those communities, something that we could certainly use. So with that offering of a little additional information, as I said, I'm prepared to support the resolutions, both of them as they stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I've supported this, but I really want to, as Councillor Nicholson said, maybe it's going to be difficult to report back, but we only have so much staff and so much staff time, and I'm really concerned that maybe we're taking on much more than we should. I realize there's funding for the T-clip one at the end. I don't believe there is that perhaps we could draw on that one, but on number 1, it's going to be up to us again. And even if it's a Simon Fraser formula that we do, it's still a lion's share of cost to us. So I've supported the recommendation as written, and I am interested in seeing what's involved, how much, and specifically how much staff time.
Works for me.
Yep. Was that a question you're looking for an answer to today? Or?
No, I just thought I'd look at you two. You're not looking bad tonight, and you know.
It's part of the report back request, Your Worship.
I must acknowledge that the same applies.
Oh, thank you very much. It's too bad we have an audience. Yeah.
But it doesn't apply to you. Councillor Asmussen.
This has been talked about at the Multicultural Committee, and I think it's an issue that also can be helped in that region. area of the multicultural and just engaging and coordinating better with this. I'm going to support this going through because I think, once again, I thank Councillor Nichols for pointing out that they may not have it by the 26th, but I think we're protected that the term of reference will be brought back at a time for consideration and potential. This is just a step in that direction. I think we need to keep this moving on, get that report back, and I have no problem if they need more time to let's get the terms of reference right. So I appreciate Councillor Nichols for you pointing that out for the tight time frame for them. But I do think this is a good initiative. Has staff heard about Port Coquitlam? Because we talk about Port Moody's in, but at this time the report was that we have not heard anything from Port Coquitlam, and we've had issues on if joint not coming aboard before. So do we know?
Your Worship,
Mr. McIntyre.
Responding to that point, the Tri-Cities Healthier Communities Initiative, when we were preparing the report, we were talking with both Port Moody and Port Coquitlam staff, our colleagues there, and that was the information we had at the time when we wrote the report. So that's like a week and a half since. Since that time, Councillor Nicholson has brought to our attention that Port Coquitlam City Council has considered this matter and has appointed that councillor to be the representative on the Tri-Cities Healthier Communities Partnership and Initiative. So we've seen that communication. Port Moody, and we had to hold up the report a little bit because last week, Port Moody meets on Tuesday evenings, and so it was Wednesday morning. We're trying to get that information to put in there. That's what we were told by their staff at that time. So it was incorrect or wasn't totally correct, but that's what we were told at that time.
Okay, thank you. And I think when the report comes back, just to Councillor Reid's position about how much staffing time this will take and what the actual cost is going to be for Coquitlam in this, I think we need to have those details. And I thank Councillor Reid for raising that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Nobody else? Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next item, item 8, concerns the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plans, Terms of Reference. Staff recommendations that Council approve the proposed Terms of Reference, which is Attachment 1 to the report, for the completion of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plan.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Rasmussen. Did someone else get you? Get it before you? No, it's okay. Everybody moved it. Yeah. Someone moved it more loudly. Councillor O'Neill also pushed his button. So, Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, I'll try not to push anybody else's buttons on this. I just want to say that the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, as Councillor Nicholson, the chair of the committee, would attest, is extremely pleased that this is going forward. Long awaited, providing some key direction to the arts, culture, and heritage community and initiatives within the city. They're very appreciative of all the work and all the funding and support that they get already. And there's many agencies and institutions that do receive the support of the city. But know that as the city keeps growing, there's so much more that needs to be done and can be done. We're looking forward to the 125th anniversary of the city. Arts and culture communities intimately involved in that now. So without getting any specifics about wants and needs and desires, just to say that very, very pleased, and I'm pleased personally that this is going forward now, pleased that this was in the current budget, and that we're going to be able to conclude the strategic plan and then fit it into the overall master plan for Parks, Rec and Culture. Very important step forward to provide needed services and amenities to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I'm also very excited about this, but I just had a couple thoughts on the terms of reference. It talks about looking at future trends, demographics, et cetera, which is great. But I also hope that it'll look at best practices. And another part of it talks about a comparative scan of the metro region. And I think, again, it's great to know how we compare to other municipalities in Metro Vancouver. But I would love us to look at some of the best places in North America that are doing this sort of thing. who are the leaders? What are they doing? What should we be aspiring to? Because I don't think, if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, I think we're selling it short. So I really hope that the scan looks a little bit more broadly at best practices out there, who's doing the best job, and what we can aspire to. Does that make sense? Thanks.
Good points. Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Yes, I'm really pleased to see this coming forward now. There's been a lot of discussion about this, as Councillor Neal mentioned, in the arts community. Particularly, I hear about it from members in the heritage community. And I think this is finally an opportunity for us to lay out a blueprint as we move forward, to recognize the arts and culture and our past history as we move forward into an exciting time for the city. We've all heard as councillors over the last couple of years requests from arts groups for expanded programming, expanded facilities. We've heard about the discussion about the need to finally have our own a standalone museum. So I think that these are all things that are going to finally be addressed in the strategic plan, and I think it's very timely because as we know that our Parks, Recs and Culture is moving ahead with a master plan right now. And I've assumed that this is maybe our acting general manager can just explain. I hope this is going to sort of timed in such a way that it can dovetail into that overall plan, because it's certainly an important part of our Parks, Rec and Culture program. And just wondering what's the timing, the time frame, and will we be able to get this information in time for that master plan?
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, that is the intent. You can see in the deliverables of the terms of reference. One of the deliverables is a midpoint draft document that we would expect would then be able to dovetail with the completion of the Parks, Rec and Culture Master Plan, which is currently out in consultation. We expect completion of the draft document in the next month or two, with the implementation component of the master plan following that. And at the same time, we'll be developing the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plan. We'll bring those together to make sure that the implementation strategy for the master plan includes things like future facilities and expansion opportunities in arts, heritage and culture. So it is intended to, it is designed, the actual terms of reference is designed to have some deliverables midpoint and through the actual process to make sure we can bring it back to the master plan.
And I understand as well, so it's not just about facilities, it's also going to be about service delivery and how our partners, and we couldn't do what we do without our partners and volunteers, and this is a chance to sort of formally coordinate that to make sure that we get the most benefit from the work that they do and the contribution that our city makes.
Again, through the chair, that is correct. We have an amazing program. It's quite far-reaching in terms of the work that is delivered to the city through the partner organizations. It's very valuable to the city. Coordinating that and making the best use of that resource and taking it forward, and taking the program forward in those with those groups, effectively looking to the future, making sure we're on the right track, not just in facilities, but clearly programs and services across the whole spectrum of arts, culture, and heritage. It's very important. This is a very important step for the arts, culture, and heritage component of the master plan. Again, it's a 15-year horizon is what we're focusing in on, and it will lay the blueprint for that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope that this report comes forward and it's not going to just come forward and collect dust. The fact is that, in the last 15 years, every time the museum asked for money, they got a dry shave. When the Plaza's Arts asked for money, they got a dry shave. Evergreen Cultural Center the same way. I mean, the fact is, our city's fallen so far behind, arts and cultural. The fact is that, I remember when I first opened up Mackin House back in the 80s, and same with the Plaza's Arts, and Evergreen Cultural Center. So in the last 15 years, there has been zero money spent on either of these three places. Last year, Mackin House wanted $1 million to study their expansion. They got zero. So it goes on and on and on. So you know what? I don't mind voting for $100,000 spent to bring up a report, but I'd hope that the report is not another 15 years collecting dust because we need to get serious about some of these things. We need to expand. As the city grows, these buildings should grow along with it. Okay? For a city our size to have a dinky little museum that we have is just brutal. Anyways, I'm going to support this recommendation.
Thank you. I'll be supporting it as well. Just a couple of clarifying points. Place des Arts didn't request $1 million to study expansion. I think $1 million was the cost of the expansion. They requested some dollars for studying it, but it was Place des Arts. But it was set aside pending the results of a strategic plan. I mean, it's one of the things we sometimes, local governments sometimes get caught up in, is trying to announce things and trying to move forward with projects before they've done a strategic plan to determine where those services would be most effectively delivered, and as a result, sometimes money gets wasted. So, and I know that it is not the case that, for example, Evergreen Cultural Center has never got anything. This last year we gave them everything they asked for, which was a brand new floor, I believe, and a number of other capital items. We do spend money, and Council is very supportive of arts and culture, and I think we've, at the same time, want to develop a strategic plan so that our investments in arts and culture can get the best bang for their buck. The same thing with the Parks Master Plan is if we don't develop a plan and then work through the plan, then we're simply making, we're taking a shotgun and throwing money at something. And I think it's much better, obviously, if we can decide with those community groups, those partner groups, in many cases, the ones that actually deliver the arts and cultural programs, work with them to determine what's the most effective means of getting to a place where we want to be, adopt a strategic plan, and then live that plan. And so I appreciate staff's work in this direction. I appreciate Council's real commitment, I think, to arts and culture, but also to the planning process that makes this a more fiscally responsible approach of going about the things we all want to achieve. Thank you very much. So the motion before us is the Arts and Culture Master Plan, or Strategic Plan. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously.
Next item, item 9, is the DCC appropriation bylaws for parkland acquisitions in 2014. The staff recommendations that Council give first 3 readings to Parkland Acquisition Development Cost Charge, DCC Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw number 4519.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Asmundson. Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you very much. We had the announcement about a week ago on this up on the site. Being a person on Burke Mountain, Councillor Hodge, person on Burke Mountain, we've dealt with this from residents for a while now. Now that we have the site, we just need the funding, and hopefully that'll be coming sooner than later, quite shortly, I would hope, to start an elementary school up in Burke Mountain for all the residents that are moving in there. So good news on this one. I'll be supporting it and moving this forward. Thank you.
This is indeed a very good day. This we have been, and as Councillor Asmundson alluded, this has been a long process. We need to eventually get to the point where we find a better approach for the provincial government for the development of new schools in new neighborhoods. We have a new neighborhood where we're pushing forward. It's been developing. It's actually been in the planning stages for 25 years. It's been in development now for 6 years, and the schools haven't yet appeared. We now finally have the property for a school, and we thank the school board for partnering with us. We certainly thank Council for stepping up as well to try to facilitate a faster approach to getting this school built. We thank staff who worked on that plan, and particularly Perry, who has done a yeoman's work in trying over a number of years, trying to move this program forward. We need to find a better solution for future schools. This is only the first of several that we have to build up that the school board has to build up in Burke Mountain. But it's good news that this one's finally starting the ball rolling. The motion is a DCC appropriation bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, don't comb your hair while we're up. The motion carries unanimously. Yeah, that's right. Yes. And I get $1,000 from, that's right. Councillor O'Neill.
We're on to, I have a notice of motion regarding...
Sorry, I'll let I didn't realize where he was going. He had pushed his button perhaps to speak to an item, but in any case, Mr. Clerk.
He wanted to counterbid on the auction. Your Worship, that's the last formal item on the agenda.
That's what we thought. And now to Councillor O'Neill, who has pushed his button.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I have a notice of motion regarding auxiliary constables here in Coquitlam. And because I'm fervently hoping that we waive the notice and are able to discuss this tonight, I'm going to read the entire motion. Whereas the Director of the National Crime Prevention, Aboriginal Policing Services, Ottawa, has, of the 24th of October 2014, changed the policy with respect to the deployment and engagement of auxiliary constables within detachments across Canada. And whereas the policy change identifies a move from general supervision to direct supervision with regard to the deployment of auxiliary constables, with general supervision meaning the auxiliary constables may perform specific duties without being under the direct supervision of a regular member, and direct supervision, meaning the auxiliary constable must be accompanied and supervised by a regular member. And whereas the Coquitlam Detachment's Auxiliary Constable Program is responsible for crime reduction patrols, school presentations at elementary schools, visits to programs with city parks and rec departments, presentations to community youth groups such as Girl Guides and Boy Scouts, and providing police presence at community events. And whereas the announced changes of October 24th appear to have a detrimental effect on the ability of Coquitlam Detachment's auxiliary constables to perform the above stated duties, therefore, be it resolved that Coquitlam Council send a letter to the Director of the National Crime Prevention, Aboriginal Policing Services, Ottawa, outlining the impact the policy change has on the safety and well-being of the City of Coquitlam, and asking that the policy change be reconsidered. And I'm moving that as of today.
That was seconded by Councillor Asmundson. Okay, it's still a notice of motion.
Yes, so I can speak to that notice of motion, and again, I would...
You can't yet.
No, I can't yet. No.
Unless you have another motion.
I'm sorry. Yes, I would also like to move that, thank you, that notice, that the
requirement for
notice of motion, being the delay, be waived, and that we can discuss this tonight.
Okay, the motion is to waive notice. We're all present, so it's going to require a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on the notice to waive, the motion to waive notice? Setting aside this list here. No discussion. All in favor of waiving notice, all opposed. We've waived notice. We can now have discussion about it. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. Well,
I'll just explain to the audience. A notice of motion process typically introduces a motion 1 week because it's not on the agenda, allows council to go out and research and be comfortable with it, and then we'll come back and discuss it at the next meeting. Because of the emergent nature of this, perhaps, or for any other reason, council can waive that notice with 2/3 majority vote. And
thank you very much.
Councillor O'Neill.
And I think just about all the detail that we really need is included in this. We have a very active and involved auxiliary constable program here, and they do a lot of very good work. And I know that I'm most appreciative of the sort of work they do. We see them at community festivals and in the schools and things like that. And in the past, they were able to work under general supervision, where they didn't have to be arm in arm with a fully sworn constable. But it appears that under this new edict, which I think was just passed, I think I don't know the rationale there, but it appears that they're going to have to, every auxiliary constable will have to be directly supervised by a fully sworn constable with direct supervision, and that would make it much more cumbersome for the auxiliary constables to do their work, and wouldn't be able to deploy, I think, as many auxiliary constables. So this has an impact across the whole community. So I would hope that council will support this, and we can send this letter explaining all of this to the person who made the decision and ask that the policy be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you. I will add that when this policy was first introduced, I've had discussions with a number of mayors from across the region of Lower Mainland District RCMP detachment policed communities, and that's about 2/3 of the communities in Metro Vancouver are policed by the RCMP. And there is actually a structure of mayors that serve on an advisory committee related to the RCMP, essentially that we don't have any say over the RCMP, but we do try. They do try to, or they attend and apparently listen. So the intent of my approaches to them was to see if there was somewhat of a consensus among mayors about this particular issue, and there seems to be. And I had intended to start a letter that would be signed by the various mayors of RCMP detachment policed communities, almost exactly to this. So this is actually a perfect opportunity to bring this up. I would love to see all of the communities of the Lower Mainland that have RCMP detachments take about the same position. My position is not even specific to this, but rather it is once again where the RCMP have made a decision without consulting at all the people they work for. They work for communities across the country, and they make decisions as though they are a monopoly, as though they are a government agency, and they're not. They're actually a contracted police service. We contract them to provide the policing in our community. The provincial legislation requires every community to have police, either to have their own police or to contract for police services from another community or from the RCMP is the typical one. The largest detachments are right here in British Columbia. In most other provinces, either RCMP is for smaller communities, or in some cases that's a provincial police role. But here in British Columbia, we have very significant detachments, and Coquitlam is one of the largest in the country. And yet we don't ever seem to have convinced the RCMP brass in Ottawa that they simply need to pick up the phone every now and then and have a dialogue with their customers, if you will, the people that contract their services. This one needed to be discussed with us, as many others, many of the downloaded costs, many of the, suddenly we have these new costs imposed upon us, or these new procedures that we've had absolutely no input into, and sometimes, as in this case, this will lower the community safety in our community under the auspices of improving safety, and I think it's entirely wrong. So I applaud Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Asmussen for bringing this forward and putting it on the table. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. You know, these are the reasons why we should do away with notice of motions. I mean, up comes something as important as this, you have to ask waive. I mean, just do away with notice of motions, and then you don't have to waive anything, because this is an important issue, and certainly I support it wholeheartedly. The one thing that the council members should know, that here in British Columbia, we're the only province across Canada that deals directly with the RCMP through the province. We don't hire the RCMP through Ottawa like other provinces do. We hire them through British Columbia. British Columbia first signs the agreement, then we have to sign the agreement with the provincial government. When I was in Ottawa, what had happened that British Columbia and many cities were short of RCMP. And I said to Andy Scott, the Solicitor General, then I said, you know, Andy, we have a great problem with the shortage of RCMP in different cities. And of course he was in Ottawa, so he said, Lou, I'm going to appoint you as a go-between Ottawa, Regina, and British Columbia with the RCMP. So I traveled through Regina quite a number of times and certainly had meetings with the RCMP, E Division and other divisions in British Columbia, throughout British Columbia, and it appeared, that's where I learned that, hey, they do not hire the RCMP through Ottawa, they hire through the province. So I'd suggest that this letter also go to the Premier of British Columbia. She should be making some noises about this also. But certainly another thing, with the auxiliaries, I'd like to see them used a lot more than what they are. We got 49. Okay, what would be wrong with one auxiliary officer walking up and down the business area where the businesses are and introducing himself to every business. I mean, the businesses would feel more comfortable, and I'm sure they'd welcome them in the area. So those are things that I think we should be using the RCMP for, auxiliaries, But I think it's very, very important that, we do, and I'm not going to amend the motion, but I'd hope that the council members would take that as a friendly maybe reminder of that letter going to the Premier of British Columbia, because certainly she should be making noises, because she should have got this letter first that we did from Ottawa, this, what's happening in British Columbia. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zerillo.
Thank you. This is a perfect example of where the municipality really does need to wade into provincial and federal items. I know recently we've had discussion around this table. Both Mayor and some of our councillors have spoke openly about not wanting to wade into issues that are at other levels of government. But this one is an example of where the municipality is being directly impacted by a decision that was made at a higher level of government, and it's directly affecting our taxpayers. And I'm standing up with Councillor O'Neill on this one, and standing up for our taxpayers, and I fully support the motion because it has public safety impacts, but it also has significant financial impacts in our community, and I thank him for bringing it forward today.
And it relates specifically to a municipal service. Councillor Hodge.
And it does relate to municipal service. We're the third largest attachment in BC and one of the largest in Canada. And as the Mayor said, we weren't consulted. And we rely heavily on the work of our auxiliaries. I know in my past career I spent a lot of time on the road and saw firsthand the work that our auxiliaries do, working side by side with our full-time police officers. The loss of the service that they can provide on their own is possibly going to have a financial burden on our city to try to replace some of the hours or to double up on services that they can currently provide on their own. And if not, there will be a loss of service to our residents in areas such as crime prevention, education, community events. Just, at Canada Day, where we see our auxiliary officers out there assisting, helping with traffic, helping with patrols, and working side by side with our regular RCMP officers. I've already spoken with one auxiliary who contacted me over the weekend, a friend of mine who's an auxiliary and a very proud member and proud to be contributing to his community. And one of the things that concerns me, in addition to the loss of service and the possible additional cost to our city, is that some of our auxiliaries may see that their role has been diminished. And I think that that could also lead to morale issues and other concerns within the department and the work that these people do on behalf of all the citizens of Coquitlam. And I think that we have to recognize that as well. I also hope that our neighboring communities will join with us and support us by sending similar letters, because we're all going to be affected by this change in policy, and I hope that through our letter and other letters of support that we can possibly have this reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Asmundson.
Well, thank you very much. I thank Councillor Neal for raising this issue, and I talked with him about it, and he put this together, and I'm very proud to support and second this motion for this. I think this is very important for how we provide our policing in our community, how we keep our community safe. We talked a lot about consultation and lack of consultation on this, and that's true, and that's what the RCMP in this situation is. And I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to some of the issues that have happened recently with RCMP back east, and I think they need to rethink their actions on this. I think we see community policing in other countries around where a lot of police officers full-time are not armed, but working in the community to deal with community issues on other levels and work to help keep things in check. And our auxiliary constables do a great job in helping with our crime reduction, the safety in our community. Through to Mr. Stedlin, was this something that the regional managers will be discussing and reporting back to and putting a letter themselves through?
There has not been a meeting since the CEDA came out, but I think this would be very appropriate to have on that agenda, and we will put it on the next Regional Administrators Advisory Committee agenda.
Thank you. And through to Mayor Stewart and Council, I think this should go to the UBCM, the LMLGA, and the provincial government, all these, because we're all affected by this, and I think it should go to all those bodies. Through to Mr. Dumont, when we went through the negotiations on our latest 20-year contract with the RCMP, that's negotiated between all provinces and the federal government, is not correct?
That was my understanding, that the RCMP is a provincial police agency, I think, in the majority of the provinces. So as Councillor Sikora said, they contract with the province of British Columbia, and then in turn there's agreements between the province and all the municipalities that mirror the agreement between the federal government and the province.
But I think that's the same in all provinces, that all provinces negotiate with the federal government on RCMP services.
I believe so, but I could stand corrected. But I think it would be, if it wasn't that way, then they would be left negotiating with all the individual cities and detachments, which I don't think would be practical.
Well, no, I'm quite sure from the negotiations. We've been involved in negotiations for a number of years until we signed the contract. And one thing, the contract, we do have what I think every 5 years an opt-out clause, or 2 years if we have an opt-out, if we wish to opt out of the RCMP. We get great value from our RCMP. Inspector Wilcott has done a great job in this community, and I think the RCMP will continue to do the best they can. I do think this puts some challenges on their resources, and I would hope that the people in Ottawa take this seriously and reconsider their decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I will add, just before we vote on this, that echoing the last comments from Councillor Asmundson, our RCMP members in this detachment are exemplary. They do a tremendous service, and but also our 49, we're at strength right now of 49 auxiliaries. Every year I get to go to an auxiliary graduation, and quite often it's somewhere around 8 new members of the auxiliary. Some of them then go on to careers in the RCMP. Some of them stay as auxiliary. That was their goal. They wanted to help out in the community. They wanted to be able to help make the community safe. They used to do it with community policing, or they used to do it at a community police station, or Crime Watch, or any other citizens service. They go on to be auxiliaries, and the smiling face, I'm not saying that the regular members don't smile, but the smiling face that you'll see at Canada Day, the smiling faces you'll see at so many of our parades and at Remembrance Day, that's quite often an auxiliary, and that they'll wear their auxiliary badge proudly, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. And on behalf of Council, thank you to the auxiliary members of our RCMP, and thank you to the regular members who work so closely with them. And before we vote, Councillor O'Neill to wrap up.
Yes, thank you, and thank you very much for all the support from my fellow councillors here. There were some very good suggestions specifically about how this motion should be communicated. So the way it reads right now, we're just sending a letter to Ottawa. Do we need to add wording to have it sent to the provincial government, to have it sent to UBCMLs?
Typically how these work is just before I sign them, a whole bunch of staff get in on the question of where have we missed anybody? Should the Queen be notified? That sort of question. And
yes.
Yeah. And usually it comes with a very common sense list of people that it ought to be included. And that doesn't go against any of the council. If council has asked for them, someone not to be included or someone to be included, we don't override that. But in the absence of that list, there will be a list produced that makes sense.
That's good, because so many good suggestions on the importance of this, and we want to make sure that people understand that. So thank you. So we can leave the motion unamended. Thank you.
Okay. The motion is a letter. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moved by Councillor Asmundson to adjourn. Second by Councillor O'Neill to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And one more time, this council has had an evening that is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.